Hey guys, Mark here with Discover Your Home, and tonight we're going to talk about decking materials and what it takes to either looking to build a new deck or replace your existing deck with a new material. I'm going to run through the list of the four main materials that we see out in the field. And hey Dan, thanks for joining us. And want to talk a little bit about their basic costs, looking at maintenance, what it's going to take to upkeep them, some of the benefits, some of the drawbacks. Every product, I don't care what's out there, there's no, as I like to say, there's no silver bullet. Every product has its benefits and some have their drawbacks. Okay, so let's start off with the four main materials we're talking about tonight. Pressure treated or womanized lumber. That's the first one. It depends on where you're located at. Womanized is kind of a more of a branding type term, but then we've got cedar and redwood, and these are kind of going up the price scale. Then Ipe, and then we have the composite decking. So let's start with our entry-level material. This is, as you can see here, it is a pressure-treated lumber. And let me try to explain that to you without getting too technical. They take a piece of, I believe this is like a southern yellow pine, and they, through a process, they kind of force in with like water as its vehicle, a type of preservative that allows the wood to be decay resistant, rot resistant, keeps the insects out. So great entry level product. It is the most cost effective material out there for the use of decks. Like I said, this is entry level. As far as the maintenance of this material, depends on where you're located. Let's say if it's a southern exposure, let's say on the south side of your house, and you don't have a lot of tree cover, this is going to take a little bit more abuse, so you're going to want to put a preservative or a stain on top of it every 2 to 3 years. If it's a northern side of the house with a lot of tree cover, you want to just make sure to keep this clean. You may not have to put as much of a preservative on it with that. If you let this go, we'll just say it's in direct sunlight and you don't do anything to it, in about 8 to 10 years, what you're going to see are a lot of lines. It opens up because what's happening is the chemical that's in the wood leaches to the surface, eventually starts to dissipate and goes away. So yes, I would recommend maintaining it with a semi-transparent deck stain. Looks good. It may be a little hard to see. It's green in its kind of a greenish yellow natural state. So a lot of folks don't like that necessarily a green color. So what we try to recommend to kind of tone it down and maybe make a little bit more like cedar would be using like a cedar tone stain or like a California rustic, something to kind of give it just a little bit, tone that green down. And in the paint world, red kills green, so it makes it look a little bit more brown. Okay, probably the downside to this product, realistically, probably over time when it opens up, it can warp a little bit too, because it is basically water saturated. It's very heavy when it comes out, from the lumber yard, and as it dries, it becomes lighter. This is much lighter piece because it's dried out. So it has a tendency to warp. It has a tendency to have a little bit more knots. So I would not probably recommend walking around in bare feet on this deck, because you can catch quite a few splinters as it ages. If you Preserve it, every 2 to 3 years. That will save that little bit of life. But that's probably, I think, the biggest downside. The one thing that is great about this product is it takes a very, very, very long time for it to rot. In fact, I've only seen a few pieces in my years ever really rot. And the substructure, like the floor joists and everything, are usually made of pressure-treated lumber. That's pretty standard, other than going up to maybe like a steel. So we'll start off with pressure treated. Okay, let's go over to our next up the ladder as far as selecting a material, and this is a piece of Western Red Cedar, and we have actually preservative on it. Also, I don't have a piece, but redwood falls in this category. We don't see as many redwood decks. This kind of goes up the level as far as cost goes. In comparison to the pressure-treated lumber. So it is a little bit pricier. It looks absolutely, you can see here, absolutely beautiful. This is a natural transparent stain on a newer piece of cedar, so it looks fantastic. Maintenance. Since it's cedar, which has kind of natural things in it to keep it from rot and decaying, this will rot and decay over a longer period of time. It takes a while, and I'll give you a couple tips on how to make your cedar deck look good for a longer period of time and not have any rot issues. Okay, your maintenance with cedar. There again, every 2 to 3 years, I always recommend put some sort of treatment on there. If you want to do it more frequently, that's fine. It really depends on location of where your deck will be. So you're building this brand new deck. It looks gorgeous when it's brand spanking new. Let it weather a little bit, and then you can apply a oil-based semi-transparent or transparent stain. Natural, I think, looks the best. There's not a lot of pigmentation in it, so you're going to be needing to do that, like I said, every 2 to 3 years. It is a little bit more maintenance to really kind of keep the natural beauty of the wood here. So I love the look. I love the smell of it. Natural cedar is fantastic. There again, redwood kind of falls in that category. We're not seeing as many redwood decks being built, just cost to, lack of supplies, cost of material in the Midwest. We probably would say Western Red Cedar is probably a little bit more what you're going to see out there. There are quality, you can have different grades of decking. So the higher the grade, the less knots, the better your material will hold up. If you can, in this type of material, especially if the deck is built close to the ground, this is really only if it's built close to the ground. If you want to put a coat of preservative on the underside before you put in, you can do that. That'll just give you a little bit more life. If it's built real close to the ground and if you have a lot of water issues. Okay, so drawbacks, it will rot. I don't care what anybody says, cedar eventually will start to rot. The more you take care of it, the more you preserve it as it goes, the longer the life will have. It will rot. It is a little bit more expensive than your pressure-treated lumber, but as far as looks go, I would say if I'm giving a choice between Western Red Cedar or a womanized deck as far as overall look, most folks have a tendency, depending upon their budgets, to select more of the cedar look. It's just a different look. So, but I always want to kind of give you that the positives and the negatives, because like I said, not every product is perfect. Okay, so we're going to move on to something we've seen probably in the last 10 to 15 years. This is called Ipe. Okay, it is a South American hardwood. It is a very, very dense piece of wood. It weighs more than these two pieces of wood together. That's how dense this material is. So cost-wise, going up the scale, a little bit more expensive than the cedar. I'm not going to get into board foot cost or per square foot cost. There's a lot out there on the net. Just go take a look and find it. But yes, it is a considerably more expensive material than the cedar, going up that ladder, that price ladder. Okay, so what do I like about it? What its maintenance issues are? What are good? What's bad? So let's start with maintenance. Let's take this is Ipe with an Ipe oil on it. This is the other side. This is what it looks like with no Ipe oil on it. Okay, it's kind of a nutty brown color, and then you put a preservative on, and it really kind of brings out just a little bit deeper kind of mahogany look. It is a very hard wood. So how often do you have to maintain this? I would say probably every 2 to 3 years or never. And I'll tell you why I say never. Well, let's first start with every 2 to 3 years, probably every 2 years. This wood is so dense that the material cannot penetrate deep enough for it to really get into the wood. It will. It's a very top layer. I don't know how thin that would be, but about as thin as a sheet of paper. Since this material is so dense, the product doesn't penetrate very deep into the wood. So it's more of a topical preservative. It'll wear quick, okay? Now, some folks like to let it gray, and if you let this go and let the sun do its work over 2-3 years, this starts to turn kind of a silver gray, kind of like a driftwood. Now, some people love that. No problem with that. It's kind of a cool look to it, but some people fall in love with that real deep kind of mahogany color. So that really choice gets back to you. We've done some patio furniture made of very similar materials with this for several of our clients, where we've cleaned them, sanded them, and re-oiled them, and we're doing it a bit every year to every 2 years. So depending upon how much direct sunlight it gets, if you have a lot of tree cover, but incredibly dense. Maintenance-wise, it's a little bit more maintenance, because if you want it to look this beautiful, it's going to require a little bit more work on your behalf or somebody that you bring in your home and do this for you. Benefits. I'll tell you what, I ran into a guy that the first time I saw this was building a deck in northern Wisconsin, and he told me why he was doing it, and he said, I don't have time. It was a resort, a fishing resort, and he goes, I love it. The challenge with my business is I don't have time to handle the maintenance, so this is going to last 20 to 25 years without really doing anything to it. And he said, if I want to, I can. And we had a great long discussion. This was many years ago that we talked about it, and we've seen a lot more of these. And it's worth it if you don't like to maintain. If you like a really dense wood that you really don't have to do too much to, if you like that grade look, this is a great product. Like I said, incredibly hard. In fact, I heard, I don't know if this is true, and I've never tested it, maybe one of these times we'll test it, that if you took a torch to this, you couldn't literally start it on fire because it's so dense. It's that solid. I think I've said that a 1,000 times. Drawbacks. If you don't like the maintenance, if you don't like to do maintenance, that could probably be the biggest drawback. It really gets back to if you really are in love with that look. If you are, expect to spend more time on maintaining it. Okay, if you don't mind being out on a weekend and taking care of your deck and doing this every year, and I do mean probably every year, especially with Mother Nature in the Midwest here, between the snow, the rain, and the sun. Yeah, I'm going to highly recommend you stay on top of this, because if you don't maintain it properly, it can start to look a little nasty, and we can talk about maintenance and how we do that later. So, okay, so that is on our price structure. That's 3 on our list, okay? And our final product tonight is the composite decking, okay? And a lot of what's out there today, let's see, I think we've got Trex, Fiberon, I think Timber Tech, I think is another company. There's several out there. And I'm going to show you a big piece of this. This, I believe, I think this is a Trex product. Okay. This is definitely, the most expensive material because there's a lot involved in this that's a little bit more so than the other things that I had shown you tonight. It's really a system, probably more than anything. So definitely expect to spend more money for this product. So maintenance. This is probably, I do not like using the words maintenance free because there is no such thing in my world as maintenance free. This is the minimal amount of maintenance that you'll have to deal with, and it's really just keeping it clean. I tell folks when you're having a deck built or you're replacing the deck flooring that you should really treat it like your kitchen floor. Okay, you spill food on it, you clean it up, you track mud on it, you try to keep it clean. So when you're outside, you got a grill on there, the dogs walk through, the kids, track through some mud. Try to keep it clean. Okay, with this, it's little soap and water, scrub brush and rinse off, or a pressure washer with the right amount of pressure. Don't get crazy. A lot of times, since it's such a dense material, and what it really is, it's a composite decking that is a mixture of recycled wood and or plastic and recycled plastic, and basically it is kind of molded together to make this. So in your maintenance cost, very low. Really just kind of rinse it off. You might get a little algae on the north side of your house. Use a cleaning agent that will handle the algae. There are some great products out there. You can just, I think one's called like Wet It and Forget It or Wet It and Set It. I can talk about that in a later show. But they can basically spray it on, let it go, and as it re-wets itself, it'll clean itself off. So not a lot of work involved in this. Okay, so that's probably one of the nicest benefits with this material. As far as I have seen, no issues with any sort of rot. Right now, I'd say it's been 25 years since the first series of decks were put together. This should last anywhere from 25, I'm guessing, up to, who knows? We don't really know how long these will last. I mean, we've seen them. I'm going to say conservatively 25 years. So the downside to this product, I would say sometimes they can find that they've had some issues with a little bit of warping, a little bit of mold and mildew issues. But a lot of that I've seen with a lot of the companies have kind of worked that out. Probably the downside, I would say, from the average homeowner perspective, is probably cost. It really is a substantial investment in your home, but it's an investment that can be worth it if you're going to plan on staying there a long period of time. I'd highly recommend, if you think you're going to be in your home 10, 20 years down the road, this definitely would be a good investment. So I think that's about wrapping us up here tonight at Discover Your Home. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Mark, and we'll catch you next week. Thanks again.